What's up, everybody? I'm Jimmy. This is New to Guns, and today we're going to talk about firearm safety. Now, this is not the video version of a boring instruction manual that you just throw away as soon as you get a new product. No. This is very important stuff, and unfortunately, it's even stuff that we see very experienced gun owners occasionally accidentally mess up. And it can make all the difference between you being a well-liked gun owner and a gun owner that people are a little uneasy around.
It's me, Gun Safety Dwight.
Now, this isn't going to be too hard because there's only 4 firearm safety rules. They should be followed, all 4 of them, at all times. Now, being that we've already told you in episode 1 that the first gun you should get should be a pistol, that's what we're going to use here as an example. And it's actually perfect that we do so because the handgun is actually the easiest to accidentally break these rules with because it's so small, and just with the simple flick of a wrist, we might be putting someone else around us in a relatively dangerous situation. So that's what we're going to talk about here with rule number 1. First things first, don't point a gun, any gun, at or in the direction of anything that you don't want to destroy. And by destroy, I do mean shoot. This is so important for folks who are new to guns because maybe you don't yet have all of your spatial awareness with a firearm. And again, with a handgun, this is so important because these things we don't want to destroy include ourselves. You don't want to point this gun at the ground thinking that it's in a safe direction when in reality your feet are down there or your leg or something else that you don't want to shoot. It doesn't always have to be a body part. Now, again, too, when you have the gun up and you're actually looking around with it, remember that just the simple flick of a wrist, and we could be pointing the gun down a line, down a gun store counter perhaps, or the line at a range, and that's just something we don't want to do. Brief cutaway here, everyone. New location, new outfit, all that stuff. Wanted to really make sure that we hit home this point because with keeping the firearm in a safe direction, pointed in a safe direction, this is now my safe direction. I've got big, thick concrete armory walls, camera crew over here, and a bench that I don't really want to shoot right over to my left. Now, if the gun is always my main focus, then it's pretty easy to just keep that firearm pointed in a safe direction. But as things start to distract me, maybe I drop my magazine on the ground, or somebody comes up to me and says my name, or I shoot an awesome shot and I want to make sure everyone behind me just saw it. This is where it can start to break down, and you always want to make sure that this is number 1 priority. So if I'm going to turn to my left, let's say, I don't want to have the gun follow with me to the left. I want to keep that pointed in the safe direction. So I'm going to move my body but maintain this pointing direction. If I move over to the camera crew here, again, I'm maintaining a safe direction. If I'm going to go down and pick something up, I'll bend down and make sure that the gun doesn't follow me down to the ground where it's pointed at my toes or something like that. All of these things, whether it's a simple distraction, if it's dropping something on the ground, these are all really simple little things that you don't need to worry too much about because, again, replacing a magazine that maybe was broken or one round that fell on the ground, very cheap compared to replacing a foot or somebody on the line next to you. So always, always, always number 1 priority. Rule number 2 is anytime you are handling a firearm, always keep your trigger finger off of the trigger, up onto the frame of the gun at all times until your sights are on target and you're ready to shoot. This is particularly important. We all have this very excitable trigger finger here that wants to get on the trigger. That's what you think you got a gun for because you're gonna shoot it. Well, newsflash, you're really not gonna be shooting it a whole lot when you're just transporting the gun around. There's no reason to have your finger on the trigger until, like I said, those sights are on target and you have made the conscious decision that you're going to shoot. I mentioned there that your trigger finger should be up on the frame of the gun. Now, in the case of a handgun, again, provided we're not pointing the handgun at anything we don't want to shoot, this is a perfectly reasonable place to keep your trigger finger. Not down here, technically it's off the trigger, but it's very close. We want it to be up here with positive engagement on the frame of the firearm. Rule number 3 is always know the status of your firearm. And by status we mean, is it loaded or is it not loaded? We don't always want to assume that every gun is loaded, but we do want to give every gun the respect as though it were loaded. Now that also goes into rules number 1 and 2. Like we said, these all build on one another. Putting this 3rd rule into practice, we can do a simple check on the firearm. In the case of this pistol, and really most handguns you're ever going to run into out there, all we need to do is grab this slide and pull back. Looking down, I've exposed now the chamber in addition to the magazine well. The magazine is the source of ammunition. We don't have that anymore, and if there isn't any of this shiny brass inside anymore, then we've confirmed it is unloaded. Part of the reason we say know the status of your firearm is because having a firearm that has a round in the chamber and it's ready to go, and you don't realize that it is that way, can be dangerous. But also, now let's say you have a pistol for home defense, self-defense, and you think it is loaded, but it's not. That could be equally just as dangerous if you find yourself in that defensive scenario. Rule number 4 is know your target, what's beyond it, and also what's in front of it. If you're in a controlled environment like an indoor range with a nice fancy backdrop, well-illuminated paper targets, and ideally no one running around between you and those targets, then this is pretty easy. It gets more important when we find ourselves out in the real world. This could be in that self-defense, home defense scenario. It could be in a hunting scenario. Really, anytime we're using a firearm, we need to know what we're shooting and what's around it. If we're unaware of those things, it could be dangerous. So there it is. 4 simple rules that will keep you and others around you safe while you have a gun and while you're shooting.
Nice work, Jimmy.
This is all important things to always remember anytime you are around a firearm. Hopefully this helps out. Again, as usual, if you have any questions at all about this stuff or any of the terminologies we've brought up, please let us know in the comments. We want to assume nothing with this video series and help out those of you who are new to guns. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Whoa, careful there, Annie Oakley.
I don't have to be careful. I got a gun.